Well, hi, everybody. This is John Wolpert from Consensus here for the next Baseline Protocol office hours. Hi, I'm going to turn my, so we are simulcasting onto YouTube, and I'm going to very quickly throw that up onto Twitter. Sorry for being a couple minutes late today. We tried something new. Baseline protocol. And boom, up on Twitter. And we'll put that on our Slack channels and get going here. How's everybody today?
I feel unbaselined because I don't have a baseline cap.
Yes, well, you know, and that reminds me, I got to ping TJ again. I'll do that right now.
I was trying to show John that I got mine.
Yeah, that's why I'm so jealous. I noticed right away.
Let's put the swag. Oh, you've got one. Nice. Let's put the swag.
Where are you getting this baseline merchandise from?
The website. Yeah, so I'll tell our design team to put the swag link on the website next time when they're back from holiday.
The Oasis Foundation has a swag.
Yeah, so we should put it on
there, right?
Yeah, we should put it on the homepage. Just makes sense. Right, and so Nick, I guess you'll keep an eye on the YouTube. I suspect this is going to be, we didn't really publicize this one as well as we normally do. So it's probably going to be a fairly small group. And I'll just keep on adding people and take a note to try to promote this better in the future. But, you know, as always, these are live and recorded on YouTube for posterity. And in fact, there might be a lot of utility in having a smaller group today because we can talk about some of the things that people should know. So we can do a little bit of an education session. That Stefan is on the call. So we can get some stuff on the record, and we can also do a nice intimate conversation with Dermot, Jack, Nick, Stefan, and Boris. So welcome, everybody. Feel free to liven up your audio and cameras as you care to. It should work. You should be able to. Yep, good. If anybody jumps on who we don't know and turns out to be a Zoom bomber, we'll kick you quick. But that hasn't happened, and so right. So we got some chat going on here. Hi all. I want a hat. Yes. So you know what? I'm going to put the link. Nick, I tell you what. If you can maybe. Take over driving for a few seconds. I will go.
Well, I was going to say I can find the link while you drive.
You've got the link. Yeah. Would you do that? That would be fantastic. Yeah. So we'll put that on Zoom, and we'll put it on the website as soon as TJ's back. Because yeah, more people want this stuff. I bought some out of my pocket for my team, and given that I'm not a crypto billionaire, I limited out with my team. So, my allowance ran out at that, so no more hats for me. Yeah, so lots to talk about. I'm going to open the floor just straight up, and I'll say, as I always do, baseline protocol is a technique for using the public mainnet, Ethereum, or whatever becomes the ultimate mainnet of the internet, as a common frame of reference for distributed systems to maintain consistency between records on a record-by-record basis, while also using that process to control workflow and ordering of events in a distributed system. And with that, Misha, it's good to see you. Do you have some questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, it's unclear to me right now. The baseline protocol, as I understand, uses Whisper for communication, but this has been reported to be in change, or what is the state of this portion?
Well, that's a great question. The first thing, the primary answer to that is that the baseline protocol, it might be more correct to say that it's that the reference implementation that the initial 3 companies put out used Whisper, and it reminds me of the way we put out Hyperledger Fabric with Kafka as the basis of the ordering system. We did that so that we would stay focused on the important things, which was doing really good interfaces for an ordering system, and so that you could put any kind of consensus mechanism into it, and Kafka being sort of crash fault tolerance. It to me, when I was running that, I was like, well, yeah, okay, we'll do Kafka, because obviously nobody's going to want to keep Kafka. It's obviously going to be something else, but this will beg the point. And oddly, in that case, nobody did change out. I think if they still use Kafka, and I don't think there are any alternatives, which tells you a lot about the motives, right, of that particular platform. Which nothing wrong with that, right? If you're fine with you and a few friends being in a private shared ledger, then you probably don't care, right? That you have Byzantine fault tolerance on the ordering service. So in this case, similar situation. We knew Whisper wasn't going to be the thing you're going to use in production for anything, but it says, hey, this is a protocol. This is a technique. It's a specification. Don't use the reference implementation. Build on the spec, right? And then use the appropriate messaging protocol for you. I prefer carrier pigeon, frankly. Or, and I'm working on quantum telepathy. That's a really great way to get a message to somebody without having anybody else see the message. So you see the point. Does that make sense?
Yes, but then, I mean, if you need to agree on the transport layer, and you need to agree on, well, not on the protocol, because the protocol has been defined by baseline, but you need to agree on the transport. How do you make sure you can reach people publicly, or do you have a common address book, or how do you make yourself reachable for others?
That's another great point. Can we just pay you to show up every week and ask good questions? That's awesome. Do you want to say anything about where you're from or who you're with?
So I'm, well, my name is Michael, I'm the CTO of the Energy Web Foundation. And we are currently working on something pretty similar to Baseline, which is the Energy Web Decentralized Operating System.
Fantastic.
One of the pieces of that is messaging. And we are working on the infrastructure on how to create a decentralized messaging system that incorporates authentication and authorization based on decentralized identities.
That's how exciting. And we're so glad you're here. Have you open sourced that work, or what are you going to?
So the DID library, yes, and the messaging part will be open source as well once it's done. We have just started the discussion. So this is why I'm so interested in your opinion and what you're building, because it could kickstart our development too.
Well, I'll put a little ad in here, by the way. I was just on the governance call for the OASIS project governance board, the BGB, which is the governing organization for the Baseline Protocol project, or the initiative. And that is a larger organization than just Baseline, right? It has 2 or 3 projects already, in what they call the Ethereum-OASIS project. And then, of course, OASIS is a venerable standards body that has been, actually, I think it's 20 years, if I did my math right. It's like 20 years older than Linux Foundation. It's not 20 years older than Linux, but it's the foundation itself. And so, and it's behind things like SGML, right? Basic stuff. And very good standards body. So if you're looking for a home for the work, it's It's also one of the least expensive ways to get out with quality governance. So it might be a way to go, right? And of course, nobody in Baseline, nobody in any of the Oasis projects has to pay a dime, right? It's kind of like public radio. You in the U.S., you listen, you can do anything you want for free, but we're also going to do a fund drive and see if you can pick your pocket for something. Yeah, you can be on the TSC, the maintainers. You can do anything you want without paying anything at all, ever. So that's one thing. So maybe your project, if it sits nicely next door, we could get together on that. But that's a little ahead of my skis on that. So let's talk more about the messaging protocol. And I see that we got Dermot, we've got Jack, we got Stefan's on. So Stefan probably has a lot to say about this. So I'll open that up for you, Stefan.
Yeah, thanks. I think, first of all, nice to meet you, Misha. Heard a lot about the energy web recently, so great to catch up here in Baseline as well. I want to provide another twist perhaps to the perspective, because in the beginning of Baseline, I think the most promising part of explaining it to those who are interested in is to actually build something on a public chain, but still provide all the privacy and permission. So when you're asking about how can people participate or participants find each other if everything is just private, shielded, and hidden, then of course this is a point. And when we're at Unibright are talking to potential clients that are interested in Baseline, there are two parts of questions that we mainly get. The first is, oh great, this is what we've been missing. That's why we formally built a private chain solution, and but this wasn't so private, but because as soon as our consortium was like consisting of 1,000 members, then we still have no privacy. So this is the first thing that that can be tackled by Baseline, but we also get questions from the other way around. So for example, if somebody in the famous tracking and tracing, John's favorite topic, like coffee bean tracing on the blockchain, no matter if it's a proof of concept or a proof of hype, but if somebody decided to go for a public blockchain because he wanted to make the information put on chain public, then it's a reasonable question how this can be achieved within a Baseline environment. And I think that messaging and also the concept of, say, a permission phone book where you can match the actual identities to the participants of a process, this has to be something that has to be a very central part of the Baseline protocol, or at least the off-chain systems that are agreeing to baseline their processes. At least those have to have some, let's call it magic mapping in the middleware layer, where you can actually find your baseline participants that you want to do business with. So without going into detail of the pros and cons of different messaging protocols, I would not be the specialist here, but at least when it comes to matching the participants and some kind of a magic registry or phone book is something that has to be put into the protocol as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll say that the identity is not something that is endemic to the Baseline protocol project, right? There's a lot of identity projects out there, and I've been saying personally that we've got to get a global phone book for companies that allows me to know not only that your address, without knowing your address, right, but knowing your label, that if I'm dealing with Procter & Gamble or General Electric or what have you, that I'm dealing with actually that company, and that the endpoints that I'm using for messaging are not, you wouldn't want to by accident screw up sending your, having the correct address for the on-chain stuff, but sending all of your messages to somebody else. That would be bad. So we want, a phone book with those attributes would be quite nice. And we're calling for that, but it would be out of scope for this particular project to be in charge of it. All right. And then as far as personal identity is concerned, not only are we not into that, but I mean, even the misconception of us being involved in it in any way led to horrors on the internet, where people were like worried that we were going to be involved in it in some way and some kind of conspiracy, but yeah, no.
You should probably not be in charge of particular identities, but when you communicate with someone, it's usually a human on the other end, and they are part of an organization. So you want to know that this particular user you're communicating with is part of the organization that you wanted to communicate with, and that they have received permission from that organization to do what you want them to do with the information that you sent them. So, and this is exactly what DIDs are for. I mean, it's a secure way to create claims and to approve claims, and then to create a public repository of these claims. And the claims can be private, they can be public. You can do selective disclosure of attributes. So I can tell you that I am indeed an accountant at Procter & Gamble, but without telling you my name. And you could trust this information because, well, it has been signed by the address that you know belongs to Procter & Gamble.
Well, you wouldn't need baseline protocol for that. You'd want,
No.
you might want zero knowledge proofs for that. And that's a good distinction. People who listen to my stuff will probably roll their eyes. I've said this before, but a zero knowledge proof, that was succinct kind of Feynman way of describing that for me is Richard Feynman was so good at explaining hard concepts. The best way I can explain ZK is, I've got a secret. I'm going to prove to you I have the secret without telling you what the secret is, right? Baselining is, we have a secret, some set of us, and we're going to make sure that we have the same secret without telling the middleware that is going to help us with that, anything about the secret, and anyone looking at the middleware, the ledger or what have you, would not know that we had a secret at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something slightly different, right? It still uses a little bit of zero knowledge sauce, but in a very, very kind of boring, specific way, right? It's not like magic math, right? There's some magic math, but it's repeatable. It's the same thing. It's basically just a sameness engine. It's saying, yep, you're the same. I don't know what you're same about, but you're same. Oh, now you're still the same. Oh, now the new thing is the same, and it's the same based on rules from the thing that was the same before. Right, so now you have workflow continuity, right? But that's a little different. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever contemplated. I don't think anybody I know on the project has ever contemplated the idea that somebody in a company would use I suppose you could, but Steph, I don't know what you think about that as a way of identifying yourself as a user without identifying yourself. But it's kind of an interesting thought.
It's very exciting, although I think in classical B2B integrations, it's not so much the individual who is communicating and exchanging process data, but it's rather, in most cases, it's still just another middleware. So for example, if you connect to SAPs, then most probably two SAP PI stacks will just exchange data, and the permission layer on which individual on company side has access to this data once it crossed the middleware layer is in the hands of the company who runs the ERP. But I think it's exciting in those cases where, for example, you do some kind of shielded communication between two enterprises, and then a third party like a regulator steps in because they want to have a certain reporting or insight on some aggregated data of a business process, perhaps for cross-border clearance or something like that. And then, of course, the identity mapping has to be somehow in a verifiable way. I don't see it straight at the B2B communication, but perhaps at those situations where third parties get in. So it's very exciting, and another proof of that baseline, understandable as a pattern or as a set of patterns, could also be extended in a way that there are additional patterns that are applied to it. So very exciting. I have to think about it more.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Maybe we could be good neighbors on this, and also if you guys find that that the baseline protocol is a good abstraction and generalization for what you're doing, and you can, ride on on that wave. It's got 500 actives, I think more now. I checked a week ago. It seems to go up, on a consistent basis. So, we'd love to have you. It's an openly governed open source initiative, right? So, somebody asked, why aren't there more of this kind of person or that kind of person involved? I'm like, show up. We're going to be welcoming. We're going to love you in. You work in your own enlightened self-interest. So, take that Nash equilibrium perspective, and, don't do work that isn't in your interest. But like Unibright, you can draw a fairly straight line between more baselining and more Unibright, because Unibright is an integrator, right? It makes sense. Chainlink is another one where you're going to need references to data that doesn't get you into non-determinism trouble as different systems execute different lines of code, right? So if you've got a time lookup on a baselined package, right? A baselined code package, which you could write in Python, right? You could write a Python script that says, blah, 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 do this, and everybody's got to do the same, and they've got to get the same result. And if there's a time lookup in them, everyone's going to get the different result. I'm going to need Oracle, right? So good example of where you can draw a straight line to companies that do Oracle stuff like Chainlink. Consensus is a product company. And we provide infrastructure and asset management. So when you want to decide to finally tokenize something like a baselined invoice, you might want to use Codify. If you are baseline enabling your product like SAP or Oracle, you might want to use Pegasus or Infura because you're going to need a gateway to the mainnet, right? So everybody's got a reason to be in this. And what I love most about baseline is that we no longer have to be in some kind of weird Cold War with traditional systems of record vendors, because if I was SAP, I'd be like, hey, more baselining means more SAP. That's a good thing. So I like win-wins. It's sort of I like a good win-win, makes me happy. Got a new panelist, Sanket. Thanks for joining.
Hey, John, I'm having I can't find that link to the merch. The website doesn't have one on their site.
All right, well, let me hand off the baton. Stefan or Nick, Rochambeau for, Stefan, do you have stuff you want to talk about? I know you do.
The main reason I dialed in was because I thought there were follow-up questions for the demo of the SAP Dynamics integration we showed last week. So I wanted to make sure that all these questions are handled properly. I mean, we had some kind of a roadshow afterwards showcasing what we did there. And the main outcome for us as Unibright was what I told before, that now people are asking how they can migrate their existing blockchain concepts or proof of concepts or MVPs to be baselined, and it's interesting discussions going on there. And I think still the most value will be if there will be more demos or showcases, or of course real world projects that show how to use the baseline protocol and educate the world about it. So that's what we also want to do. But basically I just wanted to dial in and ask for a great baseline cap, to be honest. No, just kidding.
Well, keep going. I'm looking for that link. So you could buy me some time here. There it is.
Yeah, would be happy to do. But are there some questions in the chat? Perhaps just checking.
Here, I'll put it here. I found it, and I'll put it on Zoom for all your baseline protocol.
There it is.
Flag. Go to. Yeah, so Stefan, why don't we talk? Are there questions that we need to look at? I mean, there's always the token question, and maybe we can go on the record here about that, right? So I know that there's an importantly nuanced conversation about tokens when it comes to baselining, it needs to be understood, right, that the baseline protocol is about treating the mainnet as a legit component of old school corporate IT and business IT, right? So folks in that space aren't really, they don't, most of them don't know that much about tokens or crypto or any of that kind of stuff. And indeed, a lot of companies, and for probably a very long time, aren't going to be able to hold crypto to pay for gas on, say, Ethereum. So all of that stuff is extracted away, and they're not interested in that. They're interested in good security, good middleware, good messaging layers, that kind of stuff, and getting rid of, getting to the end of the era of all these silos that we have to set up every time we have a new partner or a new group that we have to work with, right? So the promise of having the mainnet as sort of our silo of last resort is appealing to IT people and CISOs and other folk, as long as we can do it in a way that is not giving out information that could be used by our competitors, by one's competitors, to figure out their volumes or their some other information that would be bad for you to know. So that's the main point of baselining. Does that mean that there's no room for tokens? Absolutely not. If you're a user of Unibright, I heard you guys have a token.
You heard of that? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you just think of Ether as transaction cost for paying gas, it's also a token. And I also agree that the business people of an integration process perhaps do not want to care so much about crypto, not on a technical level, and also not on all the side effects that come with rumors like, oh, okay, this is blockchain, so this is exactly the same like Bitcoin, so you're all paying your weapons with cryptocurrencies. I actually think
companies are going to take a long time to get comfortable with the notion of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, but you have to build something meaningful around it. I mean, yeah. For example, the Unibright token is not directly associated with say baseline, but we use the token as the one access point to bundle all the services that we as an integrator offer. So with a Unibright token, you can pay for the integration transaction between SAP and a smart contract, and you can on top pay for the resulting transaction costs in whatever blockchain. I mean, baseline is very Ethereum based, but at Unibright we started with offering blockchain, a different blockchain as a target for our code generation. So it does totally make sense to have something that bundles the crypto-related services that come after your integration point. And if you are using an SAP and you just want to baseline it, you don't have to care what kind of transaction costs or integration costs are in the tech stack. You just want one entry point. And this is something that a token can perfectly do because you have it automated. It's a piece of software. It's easier than writing an invoice with Microsoft Word and waiting for the payment to appear on your bank account. So I think a token is nothing that anybody who wants to make a business use of blockchain should be afraid of. It's the other way around. It actually can make things easier if it's designed and built properly.
It's treated correctly, and I like the way you guys treat it. Right? It's not you're not it's not a store of value kind of thing for you. It's kind of like when I was a kid and went to the video arcade game. I couldn't pay in quarters. I had to pay in game tokens, right? So
exactly, it's a dime that you put in the machine, and then the machine works. And if the machine stops working, then you put in another dime. But you don't have to care about all the small machines inside the machine. So that's our idea of abstracting from, say, a specific blockchain or a specific integration that goes over 2 layers or over 10. The user shouldn't care about that. He just should have a dedicated entry point, for example, to baseline an SAP. So this is why we offer a token model around it, because it gives us possibilities to automate things and to make them software driven rather than manually.
Right. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Well, I was going to ask if we kind of beat that horse a bit, because Dermot's question about the risks of 2 companies baselining their systems of record.
That's a great question.
That came up yesterday as well in the mainnet session. And I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to touch on it. We're at bottom of the hour. So
right on. So let's talk about that. Stefan, you've got a lot of experience in this using the Unibyte connector to SAP. SAP is pretty serious about security. So and then we moved that and then we integrated with Dynamics, and they're pretty serious about security. Where do you see any? I mean, let's be real with folks. I mean, if you're a CISO, and we're not, this is an office hours. It's not a selling activity. Let's be straight up. Are there any issues, and where are they that we have to worry about? So if you were a CISO and you were thinking about using SAP, or you've got SAP and you wanted a baseline with Dynamics, what do you want to be thinking about in terms of security?
I mean, personally, I'm more like a software architect, so perhaps not the main expert in this area. I see that risk is considered to have the wrong level of abstraction. So with every new technology, if there's a company deciding for a specific way to go, for example, baselining their processes, they see the risk that everything changes like in the next 6 months, and they have to pay all these development hours again because there was some protocol change. So that's why we also, coming back to the demo that we showcased with SAP Dynamics, we thought it is so important to provide a small reduced domain model that all parties agree on, instead of already directly working on protocol level and then seeing that the next update perhaps crashes things on the in the end. So the main risk that I see for companies going for a new middleware is the lack of abstraction. And that's what we all should work on. That's why it's so great to have many participants in working or providing stuff to the protocol, so that you can actually ensure that the level of abstraction is at least enough for all those who participate, and they can rely on that level. And then the protocol level is one level below. So this is the main risk that I see, and it can be tackled quite easily if you do things right.
So, but that's a great answer, by the way. But let's push a little harder. What about and by the way, if anybody needs to go, I know this is a half-hour schedule, but technically, I could probably go to the top of the hour or somewhere. I got another 15 minutes if you want. Stefan, are you okay?
I have like 10 minutes, but go ahead.
Okay, let's do 10 minutes with you, and then we can go on. The web viewers didn't know that it was a half-hour call, So what about ports? Right? Like, are you opening up, in your implementation, are you opening up any ports I should be worried about if I was an IT administrator in the company?
I see. We are on network security level. No, basically not.
I mean,
level. Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing about a decentralized solution in that case, is that you can build the complete tech stack. I mean, Kyle from Provide would be the perfect guy to explain this in detail. Is that the complete tech stack, including all the baseline containers that are needed to drive a baseline process, are completely in the hand of the participating company. So you can select if you want to have it on premise, or if you want to publish it to your AWS cloud or Azure. And from there, it's just standard integration points like a RESTful API, but you don't have to open on the network security level. There's no change compared to other integrations when you talk to a SAP PI or something. So
I'd like to see in the fullness of time that it's even a reduction in ports that you're opening, because you're just using that one channel.
Exactly. So in these terms, it's rather an improvement on security or on simplicity, because you just put the communication in a different layer.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great answer. So I think we have some CISOs, like 2 or 3 already, that are in the community, and we'll get them online. In fact, we had a great call with one of the ex IT CISOs of the US CISO that was amazing, and we're working hard on that. So if there are any CISOs out there, if you know of anybody out there, please get involved, because building security means building it first. We have several areas of security related topics in the current roadmap, and they're all enumerated in the baseline protocol roadmap, and I'll put the link up in a second for that. One last point about just going back before you leave, Stefan, about the tokens. stuff. I think the other thing that people do need to know, Nick, and I want to bring this back up, is that, even with gas, thinking about Ethereum and gas, gas is is a crypto token, or is a it involves cryptocurrency, but the way we think of it is as a way of solving the halting problem for the IT issue, right? If you write a loop and it goes forever, you've brought the whole system down. Don't do that. That's a fundamental problem. So gas, you run out of gas and you don't bring the whole system down. And from that perspective, we do need to be able to take a company that cannot hold crypto, and that will be for a long time, and say, hey, you don't need to. You're just going to get an IT charge from somebody who's going to handle the gas for you. Right.
So
keep that away.
That's the gas station picture, and you can apply that to every level. So of course, for our token, we also have that gas station concept. And I answered this many times. Many people are concerned about how should a company get your token so they can start bringing all their processes from their ERP systems to blockchain. And I always tend to explain that this last part on how you get the say the integration gas with Unibright token or the Ethereum gas, this is the last 1%, because you first have to understand how to use a blockchain properly. It's not just a database so you can compare to your existing database and notice it's way slower. This is not the point. So the first 99% are to build the right cases for blockchain and then integrate them properly from the systems of record that are already there. And if you cover that, the last part of using the advantages of an automatable software token as a payment model, this is really easy to do. If you reach that point that you only have to explain that token part, then you made it.
Right on. Well, Stefan, thanks for the time. I know you guys are really busy and been getting a lot of business, so good on you.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Well, are there any last questions before we go? And by the way, this was conceived as a thing for helping people get up to speed on being part of the community. I think I'm going to do a video on how to manage the repo and just put that up on YouTube so people know how to get into the repo and how to work with issues and that sort of thing. But I don't think we have time for that today. But please reach out. The most easy way to get involved is just to go to the baseline-protocol.org, and there's a link to the Slack. There's a link to Discord and all the other channels of communication. We even have a nice connector that if you're on the community chat channel on Slack, you're pinging to everybody on all the platforms, which is cool. Thanks to Hudson Jameson for that. So get involved, come and help. With that, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same bat channel.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.